Welcome to today's lesson on genetic inheritance. We will focus on understanding key genetic terms and explain how traits are inherited from both single genes and multiple genes. In our roadmap for today, we will first define essential genetic terms such as alleles, genotypes, and phenotypes. Then, we will explain inheritance from a single gene, including dominant and recessive traits, before moving on to explore the more complex inheritance patterns involving multiple genes. So far, you have had a lesson about DNA and protein synthesis, where you learned how genetic information is stored and translated into functional proteins. This foundational knowledge about DNA structure and function is crucial as it sets the stage for us to understand how these genetic instructions are passed from parents to offspring and result in inherited traits. By the end of today's lesson, you will learn some of the key terms and concepts that will prepare you to explore the concept of inheritance in further detail. We'll start today's lesson by establishing 10 key terms. First is gamete. Gametes are sex cells. In animals, these are sperm and egg cells, while in plants, they are pollen nuclei and egg cells. Chromosomes are thread-like structures composed of DNA. They carry genetic information in the form of genes and are located in the nucleus of cells. Genes are short lengths of DNA found on chromosomes. They code for specific proteins. Next is allele. Alleles are different versions of a particular gene. A dominant allele is always expressed in the phenotype, even if only one copy is present. A recessive allele is only expressed if two copies are present, or if no dominant allele is present. If the two alleles of a gene are the same, the individual is described as homozygous. This can be either homozygous dominant, two dominant alleles, or homozygous recessive, two recessive alleles. If the two alleles of a gene are different, the individual is described as heterozygous. The combination of alleles that controls each characteristic in an organism is called the genotype. Phenotypes are the observable characteristics of an organism, such as eye color or blood type. Some characteristics are controlled by a single gene, such as fur color in mice and red-green color blindness in humans. This type of inheritance is known as monohybrid inheritance. Since we have two copies of each chromosome, we also have two copies of each gene, known as alleles. One allele is inherited from the mother and the other from the father. These alleles may differ. For example, an individual could inherit one allele for brown eyes and one for blue eyes. The observable traits of an organism, like eye color or blood type, are called the phenotype. The combination of alleles that determines these traits is known as the genotype. Alleles can be dominant or recessive. A dominant allele only needs to be inherited from one parent to be expressed in the phenotype, while a recessive allele must be inherited from both parents to be expressed. If only one recessive allele is present whilst a dominant allele is present, the dominant trait will be expressed. To illustrate, consider a gene where capital B represents a dominant allele for brown eyes and lowercase b represents a recessive allele for blue eyes. If an individual has the genotype capital B or capital B lowercase b, the phenotype will be brown eyes. The phenotype will only be blue eyes if the genotype is lowercase b. While some traits are controlled by a single gene, most characteristics are influenced by multiple genes. These traits are described as polygenic. Polygenic characteristics display a wide range of phenotypes due to the combination of multiple genes. The inheritance of these traits is called polygenic inheritance. Polygenic inheritance is challenging to represent with genetic diagrams due to the numerous possible combinations of alleles. For example, eye color is a polygenic trait. Although brown eyes are generally dominant over blue eyes, the final eye color is influenced by several genes, resulting in a wide variety of phenotypes, such as green and hazel, in addition to brown and blue. In today's lesson, we explored genetic inheritance, starting with key terms like genes, alleles, genotype, phenotype, dominant, and recessive. These basics are crucial for understanding how traits are passed down. We then covered monohybrid inheritance, where single genes follow dominant recessive patterns. We also discussed polygenic inheritance, where multiple genes influence traits like height, leading to continuous variation. This lesson provided a solid understanding of how both single and multiple genes contribute to the diversity of traits and the inheritance of genetic disorders. allowing us to explore further how we can calculate and predict the inheritance of traits.